Hey there, everybody. Welcome, welcome. The whole is greater than the sum of the parts. Have you heard that phrase before? Do you believe it? That the whole is or can be greater than the sum of the parts? That phrase, that is what we're going to talk about today. That phrase basically describes architecture. It's when the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And that's what we're going to talk about today on this live broadcast. Hi, I am Amy Simpkins. I am the vision architect. And I help developing entrepreneurs clarify and ground their big picture integrated business vision. That means I help them take their nebulous but brilliant business ideas and integrate it together into one cohesive business plan, and then harness the power of iteration to implement that vision, to bring it into reality so that you can lead the life of your dreams, feel super fulfilled, have the biggest impact on the world that you can have, and generate the cash you need to feel abundant. That's what I'm about. So my title is The Vision Architect, and this is part of a live broadcast series, which is What the Heck is a Vision Architect Anyway? And on Monday's live broadcast, we talked about what is a vision and why vision is important for your business. Why is vision superior to goals? Why don't we just talk about goal setting? Isn't that enough? And the difference between vision and goals being that vision provides you with context. It's not just like a GPS dialing in an address and then turn by turn directions and then boop, you're there. The vision provides you that context so that you can take detours if you want to take them. You can explore, you can play, you can decide you're going to take an alternate route. You can decide you're going to go for a different destination partway through, and you have all of the context to make those decisions. And that's kind of what vision is about. And we also talked about the four main components of a business vision. And so if you're interested in those, I encourage you to go back and look at the Monday's live broadcast. You can find it on my Facebook page, or you can go over to YouTube where it's archived on the Amy Simpkins Vision Architect YouTube channel. So today we're talking about the second piece of what is a vision architect, and that is the architect part. So I want you to think about when I say architect, what jumps to mind. And you can feel free to jump in and let me know what comes to mind when I say architect. What are you thinking of? But I'm going to bet that the first thing that you probably think of is buildings. You're probably familiar with architects and architecture in the context of construction. And so, and that's true. And so let's talk about that for a minute. Let's talk about what it means to be an architect for a building. So the architect for a building is responsible for designing a building that not only is appropriate for the function of the people inside of it, like you don't want to build a warehouse when you needed an office building. You don't want to build an apartment building when you needed a train station, right? So there's that piece. And then, but it also has to be safe for the people inside of it. It has to be comfortable, like, climate control and places to sit and places you can hear people talking and those sorts of things. But not only that, but the architect is responsible for making sure that the building is nice to be in and to look at, and it's beautiful. And so architecture to me is really about the fusion of art and engineering. It's the engineering piece of building a building that works in all of those ways that we just talked about, but also making the building a piece of art too. And I'm sure there are architects that are out there to design, just regular buildings that are nondescript, and there are those kinds of architects. But the architects that that you and I know, kind of the lay people know, are artists, right? They're the ones who, you look at a building and you're like, wow, that's cool. You might stand below a super tall skyscraper or a building with a really interesting edifice, or maybe the colors are just right, or maybe the way that they use the space inside the building is really unique, and it makes you go, wow. Yeah, it's that kind of art, right? And so that, when you talk about buildings, that's what architecture means, like the fusion of art and science. Now, I come from an engineering background, and we have architects there too. And so it's a little bit different, but also the same. I have 2 degrees in aerospace engineering, and when I was working in the corporate world as an engineer, I was a space systems architect. And so what that means is that I was responsible for holding the big picture of the entire space mission. One of several people, not just me, because space missions are huge, and it's hard to get one person to hold the whole thing in their head at once. But you have people who work on the spacecraft who are in charge of all different piece parts of it, people who are in charge of just the software, or just the engines, or even just the way the mission goes. And all of those little piece parts they have people in charge of them, people working on them. But you need to have someone, or a group of someones, who integrates all of that together and makes sure it comes together in a way that's going to meet the mission. Now, another thing that I did as a space systems architect was actually to manage relationships within the programs. And you're thinking, well, what kind of relationships? I mean, you're building a spacecraft. It's like a robot, right? It is, but there's a lot of people involved. And when there's a lot of people involved, there's a lot of relationships. And if there's a lot of people in a lot of relationships, let me tell you, there's a lot of competing needs going on. And so you have the relationships between the design team members, all of those disparate parts of the spacecraft and the mission. And those people can have competing needs, right? About who needs power when, and how heavy things are versus this other thing that's heavy, and you got to keep it light and all of that stuff. But then not only that, but you have the customer, and by the customer I mean the people who are actually like writing the check and paying for the spacecraft. And then you have the users, which are probably not the same people as the people who are actually writing the check. And the users are the ones who are actually going to get the data from the spacecraft and actually use it in practice and like need it to be functional for their end purposes, or it wasn't worth anything, right? And so it's balancing all of those competing needs. And so what I did was I did a lot of analysis on value, in terms of value delivered by the spacecraft. And a lot of value can be quantified. Value has to do with how much you're paying for it versus the performance, and maybe how many images you get, or what kind of scientific data you get, how much fuel you're going to use. And so all of those things have numbers that are assigned to them, and you can do computation to put all those numbers together. But at the end of the day, it's not really about the numbers. You might have a few different solutions that make sense depending on what you want to do with the spacecraft. And it takes a human, not a computer, to sit down and say, yeah, I can feel what you want. I know what the desires are, and I'm intuiting what's important to you. And so I'm going to take the data, take the analytical data and the computation, and I'm going to combine it with this intuition that I have about what's really important. And I'm going to help guide the program and make decisions based on that. So in that way, my work as a space systems architect was really a fusion of art and science again. It was a fusion of the engineering, of the quantitative algorithms and the computation, along with the intuition to say, this is what I feel is important and I know is important to you, and I'm going to balance it, not algorithmically, but in a way using my deep inner knowing, using my intuition. I'm going to help balance that to make the mission as the best it can be. So what does all this have to do with your business? Well, hopefully you've seen the parallels. As we talk about building architecture and we talk about spacecraft architecture, this fusion of art and science, this fusion of analysis and intuition, it all comes up again in your business. And why? Because we want to view your business as an architecture. The definition of an architecture is simply a complex collection of parts and pieces and functions that come together to do something, to do one collective function, to serve one collective function. Okay, so that's a pretty generic definition. And if you think about it in terms of your business is definitely made up of these different disparate pieces, different sides of yourself, different sides of your personality. It's made up of different offerings, some of the free content that you put out there. Maybe you do some interviews and that's a different piece. Maybe you have some products available. That's a different piece. You offer services. That's a different piece. And all of these pieces come together to make your business. Not only different like functional pieces, but also subject matter. I mean, as a coach or a consultant, you're probably dealing with a variety of subject matter, even if you have one overarching heading. Like, say you're a wellness coach or a wellness provider, you might talk about nutrition, and you might talk about exercise, and you might talk about mindset and mental wellness. You might talk about spirituality, and all of those different subject matters fuse together to make up your practice, to make up your business. And so we have all of these disparate pieces of your business, the stuff that you like to do, the creative stuff, the stuff that's hard to do, the administrative stuff, all these different parts of your brain and your personality fuse together, and the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And that's why we want to view your business as an architecture. We want to see it as the complex system that it is. And the way that the parts come together to be greater than themselves, so that the whole is really greater. And viewing it that way is going to allow you to be really powerful in your business. So if we view your business as an architecture, then we have the awesome ability to apply architectural principles to your business development. And you get some really cool insights about how to build and develop and view your business through the lens of architecture. And so I want to take you back now, and I'm going to give you here the three key pieces, the three key qualities of any good architecture. In order to be a good architecture, you have to have three key pieces. And this is not me. I am not making this up. This comes straight to you from the ancient Romans, the fathers of architecture. These principles came, the ones I'm going to describe to you here, came from Vitruvius. Vitruvius was an ancient Roman architect and engineer, and he wrote the first known published treatise on architecture back in ancient Rome. And he talked a lot about proportion, and you may have heard of like the Vitruvian Man. That's the Leonardo da Vinci drawing that has the guy with his arms out in two different positions. And the point of the Vitruvian Man is he was talking about the proportion of the human body and how it was so elegant and beautiful, and applying. And so Leonardo da Vinci drew that. Vitruvius said that, we get these beautiful proportions and ratios, including the golden ratio, which is my favorite, from the human body, and we can then apply them in architecture. And he was talking about building architecture. So what Vitruvius said about any good architecture, this is what you need, the three qualities you need to have for your architecture to be good. And since your business is an architecture, this applies to your business as well. Okay, are you ready? And I'm going to give them to you in Latin, and then we'll talk about them. Number 1, Utilitas. Number 2, Firmitas. And number 3, Venustas. Those are the three key essential qualities. What do they mean? Utilitas means utility, usefulness, functionality. So this means that any good architecture has to achieve the function for which it was conceived. So if your business is a wellness coaching practice, you need to be helping people improve their wellness, feel better, be healthier. If it is not doing that, it is not serving its utility. Now, I want to challenge you here for a minute, because I think there's a second part to that. And your business also has to serve the function that you need it to serve for yourself as well. So you got into business, you became an entrepreneur, you launched your own business for a reason. And we talk about a lot in business coaching and entrepreneurship coaching about what's your big why. Why are you doing this? What's the underlying passion that drives you? Is it because you wanted to have location independence and be able to work from anywhere? Is it because you wanted the freedom to be able to stay home with your kids and, not have to, and be able to balance childcare that way? Is it, what are the other, is it because you just didn't want to be in a corporate environment and have those, you wanted to be your own boss, right? So what is your big why? So that's also utility. If your business is not serving that function for you and it's not fulfilling that why, it's not a successful architecture. So utility, utilitas, usefulness, it's got two sides to it. It has to serve your clients in the way that you want to be serving your clients. But it also has to serve you. Not only in, just like we just talked about, not only in these qualitative ways around how it makes you feel and if it fulfills your needs that way, it's got to make you money. It's got to serve that purpose. It's got to make sure that you are supported and taken care of financially. Okay, so that's all wrapped up in utilitas. Okay, secondly, the second essential quality of any good architecture is Firmitas. Now, Firmitas, think of the word firm. That's the root. The root of the word Firmitas is firm. So it has to be strong. It has to be robust. It has to be sustainable. And so this means that, like, there's again, a couple different ways to look at this and to interpret it. But think about how your business is strong. Strong means that when you get sick and you need to take a week off, it doesn't fall apart to pieces. That it's still there when you come back and you can pick back up and you can jump back in. That's Firmitas. It also means that it's not running you into the ground all the time. Sure, there are times in your business where you're pushing and you're in a creation mode and you're going to, bam, you're going to get it done no matter what. You're going to work the hours. But it can't be doing that all the time to you, just constantly. You have to be able to rest. You have to be able to do self-care. And it has to be sustainable. And so what are the pieces of your business that are going to make it strong, robust, sustainable? And again, so now I flipped it this time. We're talking about kind of those qualitative aspects of your business. But then flipping it around and looking at what you're offering to clients should also be sustainable. Are you creating evergreen content? Are you creating things that are helpful on a consistent basis? And or is it like a flash in the pan? It's only useful for a small period of time and then it's going to die. Thinking about things in terms of sustainability and how they're going to last, that's part of making your business a good architecture. Okay, so utilitas, usefulness. Firmitas, robustness. And then thirdly, architecture is the fusion of science and art. So Venustas is translated as beauty. One of my favorite quotes about architecture comes from R. Buckminster Fuller, who is a famous architect. You should look him up. And he has great quotes. And one of his great quotes is that when I am working on the solution to a problem, I never think about beauty. But when I have finished, if I look at the solution and it is not beautiful, I know it is wrong. And so there's an element in architecture that you have to bring the beauty. You have to bring the art. And that's just as important in your business as it is in a building, in a beautiful building that's interesting to look at, right? That you're bringing your art, you're bringing your individual creative expression. That's one of the reasons to be an entrepreneur and bringing out that creative expression. Now, you might look at me and you say, like, I'm an IT consultant. Where is there beauty in my business? But I promise you, you can always find it. I mean, I was a space systems architect, and you can ask me, where is the beauty in a spacecraft? How can a spacecraft be beautiful? You're not going to put a painting on it. You're not going to, send it off with, I mean, as much as the movies want you to think they do. They don't send it off with an orchestral, symphony. It just goes up there and it fires its engines, and that's what it does. But even in technical, left brain engineering kind of matters, there is the beauty of the elegant solution. There's the beauty of a solution coming together, the beauty of inspiration. There's the beauty of the passionate drive to pursue solutions. There's the beauty of being able to help other people see a job well done. The beauty of seeing your clients' faces light up when you did something that they couldn't have done on their own because you brought your superpower. You brought your magic to it. And that is beautiful. So if you're an artist, if you're a creative, if you're a graphic designer, obviously there's like straight up beauty in your work. Absolutely. Bring the beauty. But even if you're not that kind of entrepreneur, there is found beauty everywhere. There is found beauty in the awesome organic expression of your own individual, beautiful humanity that comes out in your work. Don't lose that. Don't lose the joy. Don't lose the inspiration. That's where the beauty comes from. If it doesn't have beauty, the solution is wrong. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. We talked about why your business is an architecture, because the whole is greater than the sum of the complex and disparate parts that make it up. All of those little parts come together into this beautiful whole that is representative of you and your work in the world, and that's what makes it an architecture. And as an architecture, now that we've determined that you can view it that way, you can now apply architectural principles to it and get a whole new way to look at things. And one of those architectural principles comes from the ancient Roman Vitruvius, and he said that the 3 key qualities to any architecture, to any good architecture, are utilitas. It's got to be useful. It's got to serve a function. It's got to serve a function not only for your clients, but for you as well. 2, it's got to have Firmitas. It's got to have strength, robustness, sustainability. It's got to stand the test of time. It can't be a flimsy thing that just falls apart. And that's true for both the structure of your business, for you, and also for the products that you generate for your clients. Thirdly, the third key essential element for a good architecture is Venustas. It's beauty. Find the love, find the joy, find the inspiration. Your business as an architecture is the whole greater than the sum of the parts, but it's also the fusion of the structure, of the analysis, and it's the fusion of that with the intuition, with the love, with the joy, with the spirit. It's on there. And so now you can see why we call ourselves vision architects, because we are building this vision, this contextual map of the place we're going, where the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And that we're fusing our analytical capabilities, our analysis capabilities, our engineering capabilities, and we're fusing those with love and passion and joy and beauty and intuition and all of those intangibles. And the result is magic in your business. So that's why we're vision architects. Now, there's going to be one more video in the series, part number 3, coming to you on Friday, and we are going to talk about what you do with it now. What do you do now? You know that you're a vision architect. You know what goes into a vision. You know why it's an architecture. You know how to think about it. So what comes next? We're going to talk about it on Friday. Thank you so much for joining me today. And hey, if you want more from me and more key elements of business, well-architected business, I want you to head over to amysimpkins.com/P TOP, that's P2P, which stands for Possible to Profitable, and you're going to get a free 5-video workshop on 5 key elements to a well-architected business. We're taking some architectural principles, but we're really applying them specifically to business now. So please go check that out if you enjoyed this video. And I will go ahead and see you on Friday. Bye.